So one of the pressure-related service calls you may encounter is where a customer reports that pressure is not building. The parts you'd want to take to the location to make sure you have the best chance of fixing this the first time is a lid gasket, deadweight O-ring, solenoid valve rebuild kit, and a solenoid valve. For troubleshooting this issue, start by asking how much product the customer is cooking. Many customers don't know that a standard pressure fryer only builds pressure by trapping the steam as it's released from product while it's cooking. 1 or 2 pieces of chicken typically doesn't move the needle on the pressure gauge. It takes about 1/4 of a load or 1 head of chicken to slowly build pressure to the green zone, but a half load is really ideal. If the customer is cooking enough product, ask where the steam is escaping during cooking. Or of course, if you're at the location, you can see for yourself. There are 2 places that steam would escape: around the lid or out the steam exhaust stack. If the steam's escaping around the lid, then reverse or replace the lid gasket and perform a limit stop adjustment. To determine what to do with the gasket, examine it and flip it to the other side if it's in good condition. Replace the gasket if both sides are worn or if it hasn't been reversed in a very long time. A gasket that hasn't been reversed in a while tends to swell to the point it can no longer be reversed. As a reminder, the lid gasket should get reversed every 90 days. After you either reverse or replace the gasket, then perform a limit stop adjustment. This should also be done every 90 days. Refer to the reversing the lid gasket video and the limit stop adjustment video to understand the entire procedure. Now, what happens if the steam is leaking out of the steam exhaust stack? In this case, after the fryer cools, remove the deadweight assembly. If the weight is stuck in the raised position, then clean the weight, cap, and deadweight body. Reassemble these and test. So what if there are no issues with the deadweight valve, but steam continues to escape from the steam exhaust stack? In that case, the issue may be on the pressure solenoid side. Let's start by testing the solenoid valve. You can test this in Outputs Test in Tech mode. You will know you have voltage if you hear this valve snapping open and closed. If you hear this, then inspect the inner components of the solenoid valve. In certain cases, if the valve seat is excessively worn, steam will continue to escape during cooking. There is a new valve seat in the solenoid valve rebuild kit that you can use. So one last possibility is on electronic controls that include multi-step programming, like the Computron 8000 and SMS controls. The program would need to be checked to ensure that pressure is actually activated during the cook cycle. See the programming videos for the C8000 and SMS controls for information on programming. If you don't hear the solenoid valve during the outputs test, check resistance to the solenoid valve coil. To test the coil with power disconnected from the fryer, ohm out the coil from the rear of the control, or you can test right at the coil. For a 24-volt coil like on a C8000, Chick-fil-A, or Bag control, the resistance should be around 2.5 ohms. For line voltage controls like the C1000, C2000, or SMS control, a 120-volt coil should ohm out around 50 ohms. A 230 to 240 volt coil should give an ohm reading of 208 ohms, or if that coil is really old, it should ohm out around 150 ohms. Okay, to recap, make sure the customer is cooking enough product. Identify where steam is leaking. If steam is leaking around the lid, then reverse or replace the gasket and perform a limit stop adjustment. If the steam is leaking out the exhaust stack, ensure the deadweight valve is clean and operating properly, then check the operation and condition of the solenoid valve.